Today we're going to discuss some options when expanding a force of Indomitus Space Marines from 1000 points to 2000. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the tabletop. With a lot of people jumping into Space Marines with Indomitus as a starter point, I'm sure that whenever people get their miniatures painted up, they'll be looking to add a few more units to their army and maybe get towards a 2000 point game of 40k. With that in mind, I thought I'd run down a few different options as to ways that could be done, trying to balance getting an army that's functional in game and also hopefully for a fairly reasonable price. In terms of miniatures, the Indomitus contents comes to 1000 points. It really is a very decent value box set for 40k. 1000 points for £100 to £125 isn't bad at all, and that's not even taking into account all the Necrons that you get as well. You get the Captain, Lieutenant, Chaplain, Justiciar, Bladeguard Ancient, 3 Eradicators, 10 Assault Intercessors, 3 Outriders, and 3 Bladeguard Veterans. In general, the force is fairly melee-centric, and it's also pretty character-heavy as well. You've got 5 different characters there, and that means that it doesn't really line up into detachments neatly. The Captain, Lieutenant, Chaplain and Justiciar are all HQ choices, and that means they won't be able to fit inside a standard battalion. I'm presuming that you are going to be wanting to use all the contents of these guys, but in more optimised lists I do suspect that it might make sense to drop one of these characters, as that way you could save yourself some command points. In general, if you're going to try and address the weaknesses to the Indomitus of getting more units, I typically say to add a few more ranged units, or maybe even just acquire a few more squads and actually swap out some of the characters. Just a couple of small caveats before we start with the actual ideas. Generally in 40k I do advocate buying things that you like the look or feel of, rather than just literally buying for rules, as rules change very frequently. There's every chance that any given unit might be great for editions to come, but if Games Workshop feels that it gets too powerful, they might give it a nerf in chapter approved. We do have a new Space Marine Codex on the way. It's coming out in October, and the units and other options in that might drastically alter what's the strongest thing to take in the game. We know there's certain other units coming out, such as that Invader ATV, the Firestrike servo turret, and this Gladiator tank, and any of those could be very interesting options as well, and we don't really have the full picture on what these guys do yet, other than seeing the rough size of the model and what sort of guns they're armed with. Different chapters also have different synergy with different units. So naturally, if you're going to go for a more ranged chapter such as Imperial Fists, in general things armed with bolters and firing at range are going to be a stronger way to go, and if you're playing Blood Angels or White Scars, then more melee units might be sensible. Finally, I don't think there's anything wrong with buying older style non-Primaris Marines, provided you're happy with doing a bit of mix and matching within the army, but at some stage I think we are expecting them to be moving to Warhammer Legends. I would guess probably not this edition, but potentially in the next one. It just means that if you are adding those sort of units to the army, then they might be a little bit more short-lived than other options. So jumping into it then, my first idea was to build around start collecting Vanguard Space Marines, which is a really good value Space Marine box set and gets you several usable units. Start collecting Vanguard gets you 3 suppressors with the long-range autocannons, 3 eliminators with bolt sniper rifles, 10 infiltrators and a Phobos lieutenant. That will get you to just over 500 points, so I fleshed it out with adding in a repulsor and also one of the easy build Redemptor dreadnoughts. For Games Workshop prices, this really isn't too bad in terms of pounds for points. It'll be £135 or $215, and quite a lot of that value being in the repulsor. The start collecting Vanguard set is really quite cheap in terms of pounds for points. You can fit all the units within a battalion and a patrol detachment, though potentially in the future you could think about dropping another couple of HQs and maybe replacing them with another fighter unit of some sort. In game this will give you quite a lot of individual Primaris units running around, most of them with fairly decent generalist firepower, such as those suppressor autocannons, eliminator bolt snipers, and the multi-purpose guns of the repulsor and Redemptor. There isn't all that much long-range anti-tank, which could be a bit of a weakness with this. It should be pretty strong against infantry as a result. The repulsor could potentially be pressed into transport service, maybe hiding those eradicators or the Bladeguard veterans inside it, and the infiltrators could certainly be an asset to the army, getting some warm bodies on objectives and screening out deep strikers pretty far as they push them back to 12 inches away from them. Models wise, they are all recent Primaris sculpts and quite nice looking for the most part, I think. It does go down the Phobos route just a little bit, so it does kind of depend whether or not you're a fan of the Spec Ops vibe they have. In any case, I think this is quite a cheap way of adding quite a lot of varied units to a Space Marine list. Next up, I thought I'd try and go for some units with a bit more of an assault focus to them, say if you're playing White Scars, Blood Angels or Black Templars for example. This one's a little bit more spendy, I've gone for an Impulsor for the Shield Dome, 3 Invictus Tactical Warsuits for some early game pressure, and also 2 copies of that Elite starter set, the new one that Games Workshop has announced with the Outriders and the Assault Intercessors in it, which hasn't actually come out yet, though I suspect that the price will likely be fairly reasonable if it's anything like No Fear. Despite this though, this will be spending quite a bit more. The Invictus and Impulsors are relatively expensive kits for Games Workshop, so it does come out to £158 or $255, and that's before you've even encountered the Elite sets. Again, it can go in a battalion and a patrol, and I think that this one could be quite interesting for just getting loads of units in the enemy drop zone right from turn 1. There aren't all that many armies that would happily take a charge from 3 Invicta Warsuits, plus if you're playing White Scars you could very easily have 3 units of Outriders charging right from turn 1 as well. The Impulsor with a Shield Dome is there to transport the Blade Guard veterans, plus potentially the Captain and Lieutenant to get them up to buff the other units, and we could potentially throw one of the other characters in there too. Marching up behind them we have a decent horde of 25 Assault Intercessors. In general I typically use them for securing objectives and trying to bully any enemy units that were trying to push you off them, and you could potentially think about using strategic reserves or any deep strike stratagems that you might have to get them closer to the enemy as well. I do admit though, for objective scoring it might be better just to use standard intercessors over assault intercessors if you're looking at a purely game-wise view. In general you will want some units to stand on objectives at the back, and they may as well be laying out a bit of firepower while they do so. Again, I've stuck all with Primaris for this one for a more unified army feel. Models wise I know that the Invictors do divide opinions on their looks. I know they aren't for everyone. So idea number 3 is building around the No Fear starter set, which is currently one of the best value box sets in all of 40k. Though potentially it might be going away fairly soon with the release of these new starter sets. No Fear will give you 3 Inceptors, 5 Hellblasters, 5 Intercessors and a Gravis Captain for just £50 or $80 and is really quite good. On top of that you get a fairly equivalent amount of Death Guard models as well, which you could keep, sell or trade as you see fit. My plan for this box would be to use 2 units of the Inceptors, 2 units of the Intercessors, and 1 unit of the Hellblasters. I would leave 1 squad of Hellblasters and the Gravis Captain out to fit in a Repulsor Executioner, so just sit safe at the back and fire away with that heavy laser destroyer. If it's not feeling too threatened though, you could potentially move it up to transport one of the other units in it. In any case, I think it should go at least some way to solving the anti-tank problem. I do think that having a couple of units of standard intercessors around could be pretty useful. They can secure objectives while the rest of the army pushes up, as most of the Indomitus box really wants to be in combat if it can be. The Inceptors I think could be pretty handy, cheap little units for dropping in and clearing objectives. If they come down turn 2 in Tactical Doctrine, then they're going to be hitting the enemy with 18 Strength 5 AP-2 shots, which should make short work of most infantry units. Again for the models it's all Primaris. Overall, the kits will cost you £160 or $260, which isn't too bad for 1,000 points, plus you get 2 spare Gravis Captains, I believe 4 spare Hellblasters, and also all of those Death Guard models. So those are the 3 main ideas. I just thought I'd mention a few other units though that I think are looking very strong for Space Marines at the moment, with a fair few of them being among the standard size Space Marine variety. First of all, Grav Devastators are looking like some of the strongest units in the Space Marine army list at the moment. They're just very undercosted for how much firepower they can bring, particularly with the Gravitic Amplification stratagem. The standard way to run these guys is to deep strike them in a drop pod, though you could use something like Strategic Reserves or a stratagem to deep strike them, and then go to town with Gravitic Amplification. A squad with 4 Grav Cannons will cost you only 120 points, but bear in mind that you do only get 2 Grav Cannons in the Devastator kit, so you would need to buy multiple if you want to have a full squad of them. Again, Eradicators are looking horrifically strong at the moment. 6 melter shots out of these guys for 120 points is excellent. I'm strongly suspecting that they will get their own release at some point in the future, as they're not in the new starter kits and Indomitus is going away. Having multiple units is no bad thing, as it means if your opponent is really scared of their anti-tank capacity, then they don't just have to focus down one squad to remove it. Many Dreadnoughts and the Forge World Dreadnoughts are looking very strong at the moment. In particular, rules as it stands at the time of recording, the Relic Contemptor Dreadnought is looking absolutely amazing. The Relic Leviathan isn't looking too bad either still. If you like the models then there's nothing wrong with picking them up, but I will bear in mind that Forge World datasheets are likely to get a rewrite at some point in the future, and that might explain to us why the Relic Contemptor Dreadnought is quite so low in points cost. Finally, I think that Terminator Squads are looking more viable than ever. They got a very marginal points change in Chapter approved, and provided you can use some sort of stratagem or something to get them to get a charge, you could have a squad jumping down, throwing out 40 bolter shots, and then going on to murder something in close combat. I still think they're a relatively skilled unit to use, but again, if you do like their look and feel, then I think that this is a good time to get some. As I said before, I probably would keep your purchases limited and not just buy everything all at once. After you finish making the Indomitus box, maybe get the occasional extra units, and probably make any major decisions as to directions of the army after the Space Marine Codex comes out. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have any ideas for how you're going to be expanding from your Indomitus box, then please let me know down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where we should have new 40k content coming out every single day. If you are enjoying the content and would like to help support the channel, I'd just like to mention that I do have an Element Games affiliate link down in the video description below. Element Games is a UK-based discount retailer that stocks the vast majority of Games Workshop products, so it's a decent way to get a further discount when you're buying new things. If you click the link in the video description and then make an order through them, then a small amount goes to help support the channel, and it doesn't cost you any more when you buy. I also have a very similar link for Amazon in the USA and Canada. Again, if you click on that link and then buy something, whether it's model related or not, then a small amount goes to help support the channel. Using these can just be a way to help say thank you for the videos if you'd like to help support the channel and you were thinking about buying something anyway. In any case, a really big thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.